In the dusty streets of Crimea, a single QR code decides whether a car can move or stay stranded. Every driver pulls out a phone, opens a red app stamped with the Kremlin's emblem, and scans a tiny black square. The screen flashes 20 liters per week, no cash, no card, no negotiation. The limit is a lifeline and a leash, a reminder that even the simplest fuel is now a state-controlled privilege. It looks absurd, yet it is the everyday reality for thousands of families who once rode freely across the peninsula. The app is called FuelBuy, and it is the newest link in a chain that began with the annexation 15 years ago. When Russian forces first stepped onto Crimea's soil, they promised endless resources, endless power. What they delivered instead was a fragile promise built on a single, vulnerable supply line. The island now lives on a pipeline of trucks, diesel, and desperation that stretches all the way to the Russian mainland. The story of that supply line is the story of a war that is being fought not only with shells, but with QR codes and empty tanks. All the fuel that reaches Crimea must travel a narrow corridor called the R280 highway. The Kerch Bridge, once the proud gateway for heavy trucks, has been battered by repeated strikes. Ukrainian drones and missiles have turned the massive span into a no-go zone for tankers, allowing only light vehicles to cross. With the bridge effectively closed to the heaviest loads, the Russian logistics machine has been forced onto a single, exposed road that hugs the Black Sea coast. The R280 is a 250-kilometer ribbon of asphalt that runs from the Russian border straight into the heart of Crimea. Every barrel of gasoline, every crate of ammunition, every sack of flour passes over this line. In early June, Ukrainian forces began a relentless campaign to strangle that artery. Within the first 2 weeks, they reported the destruction of more than 300 fuel trucks along the highway. Each loss is a cut to the peninsula's jugular, a deliberate effort to choke the flow of supplies that keep the occupation alive. The attacks are not random. They are coordinated strikes that target the most vulnerable points, narrow bridges, blind curves, and the convoys themselves. As trucks line up on the side of the road, waiting for the next safe window, they become easy targets for drones that hover like angry wasps. Every explosion echoes through nearby villages, reminding civilians that the road that should bring them life is now a battlefield. The result is a line of rusted cars, engines sputtering, drivers staring at their phones as the app denies them fuel. In Sevastopol, the mayor confessed that buying gasoline feels like buying a lottery ticket. You never know if you'll win. The scarcity has pushed the price of gasoline beyond reach for many, and the shortage spreads to the grocery shelves. Flour, sugar, pasta, basic staples are disappearing as quickly as the fuel that could have delivered them. What do you think about this strategy of using a single road to squeeze an entire region? Share your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear your perspective. As the R280 becomes a battlefield, the human cost rises. Families are forced to travel miles on foot for a few liters of fuel. Trucks are abandoned, their cargo left to rot in the heat. The once busy highway now resembles a graveyard of metal and hope. The Ukrainian forces continue to press, knowing that each truck they stop weakens the Russian hold on the peninsula. The picture that emerges is stark. A land once seized for glory now struggles under the weight of its own logistics nightmare. If this opened your eyes to the hidden war being fought on a dusty road, hit subscribe and stay with us as we uncover the next layers of this crisis. The next part of the story moves from the shattered highway to the makeshift bridges that now sprawl across the water and marshes. When the main crossing over the strait became too risky for tankers, Russian engineers rushed to build temporary floating structures at the narrow choke point of Chongar. These pontoon bridges look like a line of metal rafts tied together, barely wide enough for a single lane of traffic. From the ground they appear fragile, and from the sky they are even more vulnerable. Ukrainian drones have learned to treat them like moving targets. Each time a convoy lines up on the pontoon, a buzzing drone swoops low, releasing a small payload that detonates on the wooden deck. The blast shatters the rails, sending fuel barrels spilling into the shallow water. The drivers pull over in panic, and the entire line comes to a halt. The scene repeats day after day, turning the once busy crossing into a waiting room for destruction. Reports from international news agencies describe the chaos in vivid detail. One article quoted a senior commander on the ground, saying that the pontoon bridges can handle only a handful of trucks before they become overloaded. He warned that the structure is a glass bottle in a storm. The commander added that the Ukrainian forces have a clear advantage because they can strike from the air, while the Russians scramble to keep the flow moving. The result is a growing queue of rusted trucks, each one a potential target. Drivers sit inside their cabins, eyes glued to the red QR code app, waiting for a green light that may never come. The app, designed to ration 20 liters per vehicle each week, now shows a permanent red sign. Some drivers have resorted to hand-drawn signs, hoping that a manual note will convince the checkpoint guard to let them pass. Most are left with nothing but the sound of distant explosions echoing across the water. Because the pontoon bridges cannot carry the volume that the old bridge once did, the supply chain has become a bottleneck. Food shipments that used to travel in large refrigerated trucks now arrive in smaller vans, each one forced to wait hours for a clear slot. The delays have pushed grocery shelves into near-empty status. In the markets of Sevastopol, the aisles that once held bags of flour now hold only a few boxes. Sugar packs sit on the floor, and pasta boxes are stacked like scarce treasure. Local officials have spoken openly about the crisis. The mayor of Sevastopol told a televised interview that buying gasoline feels like buying a lottery ticket because the odds of getting a successful purchase are so low. He also warned that the shortage of basic food items is turning the city into a place where every trip to the market feels like a gamble. Residents have started sharing stories of long walks to neighboring villages where they hope to find a fresh loaf of bread or a sack of rice. The Ukrainian strategy behind these moves is clear. By targeting the arteries that feed the peninsula, they are not only starving the Russian military, but also tightening the grip on civilian life. The scarcity of fuel forces people to stay home, reduces the number of vehicles that can patrol the streets, and makes it harder for any rescue or medical convoy to reach those in need. The psychological pressure builds with each empty shelf and each failed QR code scan. Now the war has entered a new phase, one where technology and logistics intertwine to create a suffocating environment. Small, autonomous drones patrol the sky over the pontoon bridges, scanning for any movement. These drones are equipped with sensors that can recognize the shape of a truck and the faint glow of a mobile screen. When they spot a vehicle, they hover for a few tense seconds, then release a tiny explosive that can puncture a tire or damage a fuel line. The drivers, aware of the ever-present threat, drive slower, creating more congestion and giving the drones more opportunities to strike. In addition to the aerial threat, ground forces have begun to use new anti-vehicle weapons that can be fired from concealed positions along the roadside. These weapons fire a directed blast that can knock a truck off the road without a conventional explosion. The effect is a sudden loss of control, a spin, and a crash that blocks the lane for the next convoy. Each incident adds another layer of delay, another chance for the QR code system to deny fuel requests as the supply chain grinds to a halt. The cumulative impact of these tactics is evident in the daily lives of ordinary people. In the early mornings, before the sun rises, families gather around a single lantern, waiting for a text that might confirm a small amount of gasoline for the day. If the message arrives, they drive a short distance to a hidden fuel depot, where they fill a small container. If it does not, they spend the day walking, pushing carts or riding bicycles, hoping to reach a neighbor's tank. The routine has become a test of endurance and patience. Supermarkets, once bustling with shoppers, now see only a few customers each hour. The shelves that used to hold cans of beans and bottles of oil are now almost empty. The few remaining items are sold at prices that have risen far beyond the reach of most families. The scarcity has also sparked a black market where fuel and food are exchanged for valuables or favors. Young men who once served in the military now act as informal couriers, delivering small bottles of gasoline in exchange for cash or food. All of these developments point to a broader picture. The peninsula is being squeezed from every side. The Ukrainian forces, by focusing on the logistics chain, have turned a conventional battlefield into a war of supply and demand. The Russian troops stationed on the front lines find themselves low on ammunition, low on food, and low on morale. Their commanders report that resupply convoys are often delayed by hours, sometimes days, due to the constant threat of drone attacks and bridge collapses. This pressure is forcing a strategic reassessment. Russian High Command has begun to consider alternative routes that go far inland, through rugged terrain that is difficult for heavy trucks. These roads are narrow, unpaved, and prone to landslides, especially after recent rains. The longer travel times increase fuel consumption, which in turn reduces the amount that can be delivered to the peninsula. The situation creates a vicious cycle. Less fuel means fewer trucks, which means even slower deliveries, which means even less fuel reaching the front. At the same time, the Ukrainian side continues to press its advantage. Intelligence reports indicate that they have mapped the most vulnerable points along the R280 and are ready to strike at any moment. Their artillery units have been positioned to target the few remaining supply depots that still function. Each successful strike further chips away at the Russian ability to hold the territory. The human cost of this logistical war is growing. Families are forced to make hard choices, spend their limited money on a few liters of gasoline or on food for the week. Children go to school without proper meals, and the scarcity of heat in the colder months threatens the health of the elderly. Hospitals report shortages of essential medicines that were once delivered by refrigerated trucks, now stuck in traffic or destroyed on the road. What do you think about this kind of warfare, where the battle is fought more with drones and paperwork than with guns? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your perspective helps us understand the many angles of this conflict. If you are following this unfolding story, consider supporting the channel by liking the video and subscribing. Your engagement lets us keep digging deeper into the hidden layers of the war. Stay with us as we move toward the final segment, where we examine the broader implications for the future of Crimea and the region. The final piece of the puzzle looks at the strategic picture as the months go by. Ukrainian forces, by tightening the supply chain, are gradually reclaiming small sections of land that were previously under Russian control. Each reclaimed village or outpost reduces the distance that Russian troops must travel to reach their forward positions. The longer the supply line, the more vulnerable it becomes to further attacks. Analysts note that Crimea, once celebrated as a trophy annexation, is now becoming a costly liability. The expense of maintaining a constant flow of fuel, food, and ammunition across a single, heavily contested road is draining resources that could be used elsewhere on the front. The Kremlin's original promise of endless wealth from the peninsula's ports and tourism is fading under the weight of the ongoing crisis. The situation also has diplomatic ramifications. International observers point out that the humanitarian aspect of the crisis, empty shelves, black market fuel, families forced to walk for miles, adds pressure on the Russian government to find a political solution. The longer the people of Crimea suffer, the more likely they are to voice dissent, even if only quietly, in their homes and markets. In the broader context of the war, the struggle over fuel and logistics in Crimea serves as a microcosm of the entire conflict. It shows how control of a single supply route can dictate the fate of an entire region. It also illustrates how modern technology, drones, mobile apps, satellite surveillance, has reshaped the battlefield, turning everyday objects like a QR code into instruments of power. Looking ahead, several scenarios could unfold. One possibility is that Russia invests in a massive engineering project to build a new fortified bridge capable of withstanding drone attacks. Such an undertaking would require massive resources and time, during which the current crisis would deepen. Another scenario is that Ukraine continues its pressure, eventually forcing Russian commanders to withdraw from the most exposed positions, conceding parts of the peninsula to reduce the logistical burden. A third, more uncertain outcome is a negotiated settlement that includes provisions for humanitarian aid, allowing the flow of essential goods to resume under international supervision. Each of these paths carries its own risks and rewards. The key factor remains the same: the ability to move fuel and supplies efficiently. As long as that artery stays clogged, the peninsula will remain a pressure cooker, ready to explode under the strain. So, is Crimea still a prize for Moscow, or has it become a costly burden that threatens to drag the entire war effort down? The answer may lie in the next few weeks, as the battle for the R-28 continues and the QR code app keeps ticking down the limited liters for each driver. We want to hear from you. Do you think the logistical chokehold will force a strategic retreat, or will Russia find a way to break through the blockade? Comment below with your thoughts, and let's discuss the possibilities together. If you found this deep dive informative, please give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more analysis of hidden battles and untold stories from the front lines. Your support helps us keep bringing you the facts behind the headlines. Thanks for staying with us. The story of gasoline, QR codes, and a broken road tells us more than just a supply problem. It reveals the human cost of a war fought on a road that now looks more like a graveyard than a highway. Until the next episode, stay informed and stay curious.